Hey everybody, John here. I want to take a few minutes today and talk about some different tools that I like to use for what I call ancient strength. So it's basically this useful strength of how to pick things up off the ground and carry, row, pick, and load, that kind of stuff too. So everything from our natural stones over here to, I'm going to show you some other interesting tools that I've come across over the years now, from Atlas stones to sandbags and kind of some stuff in between. So what I want to kind of start with is just talking about the progressions of what I've found to be most effective too. So really the best tool, we're going to come back to this too, that I've found is the sandbag. So this is a project, or actually this is a Rogue bag. I do have a lot of Project Kratos bags too. They're virtually the same thing. I love both. They're both great products and they do not leak. I have not had one bag leak in 2 years. I was very skeptical of this. I thought they would definitely have some issues with leakage or just loading and all that stuff too. So let's come over here a little bit more and I'll show you guys what this looks like. Basically here, this just has this Velcro. It has an inner liner and everything too. So this is really well done. And unless you're opening and filling and adjusting this quite a bit, it's not gonna be a big issue for you. So we'll come back to this actually, and I want to start with some of the more pros and cons and kind of break down some of the maybe limitations, dogma, or just something that people kind of get hung up on and look at it from a pure like strongman competitive side of things, which is actually our Atlas stone, to the raw historic stuff that I love, and that's where the ancient strength kind of principles and tool and uniqueness of it is actually with these natural stones that have really their own, you know, kind of unique energy. You're lifting them out in the wild, you know, uneven ground, that kind of stuff too. So I really like to do those out on the grass kind of thing. With Atlas stones, I would much prefer to be on a harder surface. You see just some little details and some wins that I found over the years. This is 3 layers of stall mats actually. So you need probably at least 3 layers or something, close to about 3 inches of padding to allow yourself to drop stones, because you're generally going to want to drop stones once you've lifted them. Think about it a lot like an Olympic lift too. So we have bumper plates, we have all different options to do Olympic lifts or variations of Olympic lifts, and we're generally going to drop those down all the way unless we're working on a real specific drill, because we don't want all that high tension grinding and wear and tear basically on our body. So specifically with the Atlas stone, this is about 160-pound stone, and you'll see these are quite smooth. So what we want to use, the downfall basically, or the challenge of that, is we pretty much need to use tacky if we're going to lift these more regularly, or really training for strongman events. This would be my, you know, of course, favorite tool for an actual strongman event is to load Atlas stones. They're fairly accessible. You can make your own mold. You can find them at local. I've had a couple made. I've found kind of bits and pieces from friends that have had equipment or, you know, stones that they're no longer using. They hold up quite well. I can just have these outside. We'll usually do like a cement coating about once a year or so to keep the quality of them. But they are really smooth. So to lift these without tacky here and using these products, probably the easiest win if you're going to use a natural stone would be like a tacky towel. It's a nice kind of blend of both worlds where you don't have to spend a ton of time getting tacky on and off and adjusting all that stuff. That's an art and a science and just a big old hassle in itself, and you end up touching things and getting tacky all over stuff too. If you're a Highland Games athlete like me, it's quite a bit easier to work with. It's a little different texture. This is actually Highland Games tacky from my friend Mark Wechter, and that works well enough all around. Different weather conditions, blah blah blah. It's just a little more complicated that way. And if you don't use tacky, it's not the end of the world, but you're going to severely limit the amount of weights you can lift with a with an Atlas stone. And I've found personally a lot of wear and tear on the forearms, and again, just more limiting by this area. Otherwise, it's about the same. Once, especially getting the stone off the ground, it is nice to be able to pick and hold here. So if I pick this guy here, I really want to get under, especially with the Atlas stone, kind of rock back and forth and get under. I like kind of that Spock grip like that right here. I could do something where, as long as I'm in line with my feet, I don't want to make this a whole lifting tutorial, but to kind of show you the tools here as I pick straight up here and to get over this here is just a little different with the Atlas stone compared to natural stones or sandbags. And then generally with Atlas stones, it's nice to be able to load them onto something. It can be fun to just do reps of, you know, my big 3 favorite exercises are basically a bent over row, a squat variation, and then a carry. Those would be my big 3, especially foundational movements for most people kind of getting into stones or wanting to really do a stone lifting program, a proper program that's going to prep you for the things to come, whether you want to go over to Scotland or Iceland and lift stones, or you want to enter a strongman competition, or just kind of have access and actually use real Atlas stones. And again, these are kind of more standardized too. You see our whole collection of Atlas stones. We have everything from a 70 pound up in about 30 pound increments, all the way to the big 200 kilo, which is 440 pounds. That would be a world record for me at under 200 pounds. So that's the big stone to have. So that's a little cumbersome for space wise too. So kind of another maybe downfall to that. And again, maybe the last piece as far as safety goes, dropping an Atlas stone, not too big a deal on a nice flat surface kind of thing. Shouldn't be a big issue. Loading it onto platforms or loading it, you go behind me for a second here, over a yoke is a great option. This would be really high, obviously, so we'd probably have it lower. So most people, I think loading to about 44 inches would be a nice place to start to know what it takes to get that stone up onto a platform. That would generally be kind of the standard. But to show you guys some of the other implements, and also just to share this quick too, this would just be a drop pad. This is just a climbing drop pad. I think you can find it just on Amazon, or some old tires can work well. Something you can drop the stones on, whether you are lifting onto the platform. And again, this is the custom made, really solid platform. Goes from about 40 to about 62 inches. That's where competition loading generally would go to. And again, higher you go, you do have to be really careful with the amount of weight you're trying to lift, sliding off or over the yoke. I have heard of some horrific injuries from that kind of stuff too. So again, downfall maybe of the Atlas stone. Let's go to the natural stones actually next here. And this would be a little more of evolution. I would definitely want you to spend some time with the sandbags, ideally first, like I talked about, probably going to Atlas stones generally, and then to natural stones. Could go a little bit after sandbags. You could go into some more natural stones, but show you guys kind of the collection we have here and all these different weights from about 70 pounds. This is what I've gleaned, procured. Some of these are just local stuff, like right on our property, or just great stones I found over the years kind of thing. So the pro of that is they're free, basically, right? They have all different grips. It really becomes a true like puzzle. It really becomes like a Rubik's Cube that you have to solve and adjust from how you pick it, how you lap it, all the different weather conditions. You know, this could be really rough, wet ground. We only use chalk, that's the standard. And I don't think tacky would generally work very well anyways, but you see a stone like this is a nice kind of middle ground of stones. You get these really cheese grater type of stones that have a ton of, we'll go over here for a second. This kind of stuff is going to be really easy to pick as far as the grip, but these are nice, called these bend basalt. So these are basalt lava rock, and they're not as durable either. So dropping these a bunch of times, they can crack. And those are going to be really tough on the forearms, generally. In the rest of the body, especially if you're trying to shoulder these things, they can leave you really beat up and battered. A little bit of battle scars. I mean, I don't have any too many permanent scars from that kind of stuff, but it'll beat you up and you'll bleed a little bit too if you're not careful. So that's, again, kind of the downfall there. But to pick one of these guys, it's a lot more feeling out, finding the balance here of where that stone basically wants to be lifted. It'll talk to you. This is kind of from, you know, Dr. Bill Crawford, if you guys have heard of him. I've been a big fan of his work, and he's got a great book on stone lifting along with Martin Janczyk's. And then, you know, there's just not a lot of great information out there. Also, the Rogue documentary series, there's 3 different ones on stone lifting that I highly recommend. But thinking about this thing is, it's alive. It has a life force to it, basically. It's its own thing and unique that way too. So when we pick that, you know, we're gonna really feel out where that balance point, probably rock around or even kind of bring the stone up and down carefully onto our fingers. And that's gonna allow us to find a nice point to pick that thing. And generally with natural stones, you can't even clasp your hands and find a way where you can really lift that thing, especially if you're gonna go to shoulder, or sometimes we'll put them on a plinth, like if over in Scotland, they'll have some of the stones that are going to a plinth. So give you guys an idea here. Just there, boom. And the shoulder, a natural stone, that's kind of the ultimate test. And then carefully bringing the stone down would be the standard for natural stones. And you could, of course, just go out to your local park and play around with these any time kind of thing too, or you know, some trail that's going to have some natural stones. The downfall, again, it's much more this becomes this like meathead mentality where you're just like, hey, I'm going to go out and just pick up the heaviest stone I possibly can. You probably wouldn't do that with a deadlift or other gym lifts, and that's where strongman training kind of becomes, you know, eroded, or just a big meathead lifting thing, where much better to lift different weights of stone, just like you would wave your loading, or you would do more of an explosive lifting day, that kind of stuff. This is kind of for another topic, but definitely want to lift all different weights of stones. You don't want to just get in a gear of like, oh, let's see how heavy of a stone I can pick up, whether, you know, or sandbags too. But bring you guys up here again. Maybe one more quick thing too, you'll get different weights. Like this would be a little bit better stone for pressing potentially. Something that's a flatter, more of a block, and carries like the Husafel carry, things like that, a little bit more of an oblong shape. Or we have some other stones like this, I call this the Smurf Sturker stone. This would be more of a true carrying stone. You wouldn't be picking that up in a traditional fashion and trying to lift that way. So just to kind of share that. Let's go here and show you guys the sandbag. So specifically the sandbag, again, back to that, is it's just got so many other nice pieces to it. And I could fill this, I could have it really sloshy and awkward to pick up, and it can be a little bit easier to grip in sometimes, as long as it's filled with like 60 to 70% of what it's kind of rated for. Like this is a 150-pound bag. If I had, say, 120 pounds of this, it starts to get really sloshy and kind of like a dead body or something that you're hauling that way. So it has some unique properties in that sense. It's a little bit easier compared to the natural stones too. Natural stones can really beat up the body, like I talk about with the actual abrasion type of stuff, but it puts you in odd positions. You might have to twist, you might have to be here. The sandbag, it does, every time you drop it, it takes on a little bit different shape. It's kind of unique that way. Where Atlas stone, again, benefit wise, is the most uniform that way too. It's consistent that way, besides the size of the stones and maybe a little bit with the texture. This is a lot harder to standardize and find that way. But to pick the sandbag here, I'll get way underneath and I won't open my hands as much, and I don't need to really clench and get under there as much. Grip tends to be a little less of an issue, so a little easier maybe on the forearms, and I would definitely say the safest overall. Dropping a sandbag on my foot is probably going to be just fine, or from what I've done in the past, it has not caused any major damage. I've had some close calls with Atlas stones, definitely had some really close calls with natural stones, especially on odd, awkward surfaces. Adds some risk, adds some spice to it. You only live once, but it's probably best to live long and prosper and not drop a stone on your foot, because I don't think that'd feel good and probably could easily end up in the hospital. But dropping those, you really have to watch where the ground position is. So a couple little safety things there. But to pick this, I'm going to get way under here and I'm going to pull up to my lap again. Same idea, whether I'm clasping or I'm holding in another, just bear hug position. This is really nice to be able to really hug this sucker and do, again, our big 3 lifts. Those are my favorite for ancient strength. Again, the row, bent over row variations. I've shared this stuff before, so you guys can check that out in my other archives and stuff too. And then you have squat variations. We will do some shouldering of the weights and stuff like that, or some really explosive work, so that'd be kind of an offshoot of the third part. And then the last one would just be carry variations too, so we have some cool things you can do as your pillars, as your foundation. So a couple other kind of side pieces too. Kegs could be another option. I paid $20 for this keg. It's filled right now with a little bit of lead shot, so it's only about 80 pounds, but this thing really sloshes around. You could fill it with water, fill it with beer, anything to slosh around that way. That would make it very lively and challenging that way. Otherwise, if I filled this thing up with a bunch of sand, I think it would be probably over 200 pounds easily. If it's filled with water alone, it would be about 165, 170, I believe. Again, Atlas stones, all different weights. Of course, we could build whatever molds we wanted to with that, or fill it with a core with shot, or like a lead core kind of thing. Med ball can work well. This gets expensive. These are nice and uniform too. This has kind of this liveliness to it. Pretty easy grip. It falls, you know, lap wise. There's not much to it for that density. Again, this is not a heavy ball, but these are going to cost at least $100, even for 70, 80 pounds. Some of the Sandbag type of stuff too. It's going to be really expensive, pound for pound kind of thing, where the Sandbag is really hard to lose on that, where that's going to have its own, you know, just $5 or so for each bag of sand. It's about $15 plus one of these, especially from Kratos. Nice little discount code I can share for you guys too. It's 15% off. Is under $100. You can have one of those. Stones would be under $100 too, but again, that's not adjustable at all. That thing is just what it is, obviously. In the past, I've shared some other stuff on making your own sandbag. Here's basically the $6 version that I have. The other ones I've given away, so I don't have access to the ones I've made out of a nylon canvas style bag, and those can be filled up really nicely for about $25, $30. It just kind of depends on how you want to take that and work with it. And again, I think this is the purest measure of like total true strength, and a lot of true stone lifters that are putting the work really agree with that too. I don't think there's anything better for truly useful strength, or, you know, if you want to call it functional strength. It just puts it all together in a way that you're actually picking something truly heavy off the ground, just like you're you know, doing yard work and truly lifting awkward, odd objects. Imagine, you know, picking up a couch or picking up a heavy box on the ground. This is the best way to truly train that. Nothing wrong with barbell stuff, nothing wrong with kettlebell stuff. I just think people should spend some time at least with these implements. And again, back to the point too, is to share all these implements, but show you that the key piece that I think is most valuable is definitely the Sandbag, as far as the injury goes, accessibility, and just the ability to adjust. Personally, I'd recommend 2 or 3 sandbags, and then you have your own kind of built-in gym. I usually have people just buying kettlebells, a couple kettlebells first, and then the next tools after that are a couple sandbags, and then they can expand on that. So hopefully that shows how valuable, how much I use this, and how much my students, my clients value this stuff too. So thanks for tuning in. Again, this is a little summary of all the different implements we have here. And if you enjoyed this, please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that stuff that helps me to keep putting out more content and gets good feedback, so I can get more information on what you guys want to learn about. So thanks.